You're here on Just Maria D, and I am indeed Maria D. Thank you for joining me today. If you're a new subscriber to this channel, I want to say thank you for hitting that button. For those of you who are new, I have 5 children, I have 1 husband. I'm English, and my parents emigrated to Australia when I was 2, and then my husband and I moved to England 10 years ago in February. We left Australia and we've been living here ever since, bringing up our children. This week I have been spending some time meditating on the concept of fear and love, and how important it is as parents to make sure that my relationships are grounded in love rather than fear. And not just my relationships, but also my actions, that so many of my actions in the past, and no doubt will be in the future as well, can be founded and can be made from that position of fear rather than of love. I don't want to live that way, I've decided. I made a commitment to myself some years ago now and it was at a time where I was really quite low, and I was questioning a lot of things, and I think I was probably in quite a depressed place, really, and I felt very anxious and I felt very worried, and I didn't like what I was feeling. It seemed to be juxtaposed to what I believed about life and faith and spirituality and all of those things. And so I kind of had these thoughts here, but I was living here, really, and it just, you know, the dichotomy, is that the word, is that what I'm looking for? What I thought about things and how I was feeling was just, the chasms were just deep. And so I made a very conscious effort, not just an effort, I made a vow to myself that I would try and move and operate and live and parent, relate to other people from a place of love rather than a place of fear. Because fear was eating me alive. I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of not being good enough. I was afraid of failing. I was afraid of horrible things happening to my children. I was afraid of my husband leaving me. I was afraid of people not liking me. I was afraid that I might just ruin my children's lives through the decisions that I was making, like to home educate. I was afraid that by choosing this book and not this book, that perhaps, you know, I was doing something dreadful to them, and would I leave great big gaps in their education? By moving to another country, was I stuffing them up? You know, there were all these kind of fears that were floating around in my psyche, and I just decided that enough was enough, that I didn't want to be in that place anymore, and I didn't want to be that person. I wanted instead to not act and move and live out of fear. I wanted to live out of love. But part of living out of love is confronting yourself. And it's not an easy thing to do. I just want to read you a quote, and it's by Yann Martel, is the author of The Life of Pi, and he says, "I must say a word about fear. It is life's only true opponent. Only fear can defeat life. It is a clever, treacherous adversary, how well I know. It has no decency, respects no laws or convention, shows no mercy. It goes for your weakest spot, which it finds with unnerving ease. It begins in your mind always. So you must fight hard to express it. You must fight hard to shine the light of words upon it, because if you don't, your fear becomes a wordless darkness that you avoid, perhaps even manage to forget. You open yourself up to further attacks of fear, because you never truly fought the opponent that has defeated you." How does that apply to me? And the vow that I made to myself. Firstly, I will say, in order to live from a place of love, you do have to shine a light on your fears. You do have to give them words. You do have to say, I am afraid of this. You have to put a label on it, and you have to call it what it is. Because sometimes we can hide behind other things with our fear. Perfectionism can be fear. Some of our parenting methods, our choices can be fear. I need to protect, our need to have well-behaved children can sometimes be motivated by fear. Now, don't get me wrong, I think boundaries are a good thing. And I'm certainly not saying that all boundaries are motivated by fear. I'm saying that sometimes our choices can be motivated by fear, and we need to pull apart and look at why we're doing what we're doing. When you have children and you do allow yourself to examine what is going on within your heart and soul and what is really behind your actions, then you soon start to realize that you are very aware of your imperfections. I am a big believer that every emotion that we feel teaches us something about ourselves. I don't think that emotions are evil. I think it's what we do with those emotions and how we act from those emotions that determines who we are and the type of people that we become. So fear is very normal. It is a very natural thing to feel. And especially when you're raising children, like, of course there are things that we're going to be afraid of, because the world can be such a big and scary place. But what we need to be careful of is that we don't act out of our fears in those situations. So for instance, like, I know there's a lot of talk these days around helicopter parenting and how unhealthy that can be for our kids. You know, a basic Google search into the psychology of fear when it comes to parenting will show that there's actually a lot of concern about how, you know, our fear as parents is stopping our children develop in, you know, healthy, normal ways. So for instance, you know, in order to protect our children, sometimes we don't allow them to do things which in actual fact they need to do in order to develop risk awareness. We've all been at the park and there has been that child that's been allowed to climb to the top of the frame. And depending on which camp you're in, you've got the parents over here, the oh yeah babe, I can see you, you're doing a great job, keep going, that's excellent. And then you've got the parents over here going, oh my gosh, they're terrible parents. Look at that child. Can you see that child? It's on top of the frame. I would never let my child do. How irresponsible. You've got these guys going, yes, you've done it. You've negotiated it and you're safe. And you've got these guys going, I would never allow my child to do that. Well, that child could fall and it could break its arm. We've all been there. I know that I've been the parent here and I know that I've been the parent here. And I don't want to say that this one is right and this one is wrong. What I do want to say is that quite often those two lots of parents may be parenting from different places. And what we think might be love in protecting our child from things could be fear. Sometimes the things that we are trying to protect them from because we are afraid, learning to do some things independently, walking around to the corner shop perhaps, climbing to the top of the frame at the park, going really fast on the swing, being on a trampoline without a net. Some of the things that we are doing because we love our children and we want to protect them are actually based in our fear rather than in what children actually need, because they do need to have those experiences so that they can learn to manage their own risk. They need to know that they can trust themselves. When we allow our children the freedom to make some of those decisions, they learn that we trust them, but more importantly, they learn, you know, their own boundaries and their own capabilities, and more often than not, they live within those better as well. Or so the psychologists are telling us. The second topic that I had jotted down to talk about today was judgment. Quite often in my quest for raising children well in the world, I realised that the fear of judgment was driving a lot of my parenting decisions. I would try very hard to make sure that my children were quiet and orderly and respectful in church. Now, there is nothing wrong with those kinds of behaviours at all, and I'm not saying that there is. My motivations for doing that often stemmed from the fact that I was afraid of being judged. I was very, very afraid of people thinking I was a bad mother, that I wasn't a capable mother, I was a bad Christian, I was, not the right kind of Christian, didn't have the right kind of beliefs because, my child might not behave perfectly, or how other people thought Christian children should behave. So that was something I really had to shine a light on, because I was often more concerned about what was going on, not because of the heart state of my child, but because somebody else might make a judgment about me as a parent. And when I started to shine a light on that a little bit, I found that my ego was very much behind that, because more often than not, I was more concerned about appearances and them doing the right thing because than I was about what actually may have been causing that behaviour to begin with, or trying to meet the needs of what was behind that behaviour. Just making an allowance for the fact that kids are kids and that sometimes they do need to run about and sometimes they are noisy, and that doesn't make them bad people. That doesn't make them bad or wrong. It's just that that's who they are. We also need to remember that they're kids and have the expectation of them being kids, not of being adult. I found that I was parenting them based on fear of other people rather than on my love for them as individuals and my love for them as a nurturer and wanting to do, be there to meet their needs and listen to what they needed. Not only was it an inauthentic way to parent my children because it was about appearances and not about truth and authenticity and their hearts, but it started to change who they were as well, and I didn't like those changes. It was my fear that was driving that, of being judged. Third thing that I want to talk about in terms of fear and love is that it is really important as adults that we do operate from the place of love rather than fear, because children already have enough of their own fears. The world can be a really scary place for children, and when we are in that place of anxiety and fear, we are compounding those things for them as well. We need to be the people that are singing hope into their hearts, that are pointing out the helpers in the world. We need to be showing them the beauty of life. We need to be pointing out things of faith, whatever that faith, however faith looks like for you. We need to be filling them full of things that take them further on to in life, rather than causing them to be stuck in fear and anxiety. We need to be inspiring them. We need to be addressing those concerns, really honestly and openly, and as the quote says, shining a light on those fears and saying, are you behaving that way because you're afraid? So it's okay to feel afraid about those things, but we don't want to live there. So, what can I do to help you? What story can I tell you? What motivational speech can I give you? What real life example can I show you? Can I show you the greatness that exists in life when those people choose to operate on that place of love and that place of freedom, rather than from a place of fear? So we do need to acknowledge that children have their own fears, and we need to be careful that we're operating from a place of love, not of fear, so that we don't compound those for them as well. That we are their safe place in the world, not because of what we stop them from doing necessarily, but what we free them to be. I'm just going to leave you with another quote. This time it's by a gentleman called David D. Burns. Aim for success, not perfection. Never give up your right to be wrong, because then you will lose the ability to learn new things and move forward with your life. Remember that fear always lurks behind perfectionism. Confronting your fears and allowing yourself the right to be human can paradoxically make yourself a happier and more productive person. One of the most important things that I have learned as a parent is that I can only bring my children as far as I have come myself. And so if I want to take them somewhere new, then I had better get on with working out how to get there myself. Anyway, I've been Maria. You have been awesome. Thank you for joining me for another That Thursday vlog, and we'll catch you on the flip side.